Hello everyone, my name is Alex Sawyer, better known as Ghostly Flow, and today I'll bring you a deck tech for Blue-Green Drowner Eldrazi. So let's jump right in with the mana base. We have 25 lands, so some forests, some islands, 4 Lumbering Falls, 3 Sanctum Ugin, pretty important part of the deck. Um, when you can sacrifice it when you cast an Ugin or an Ulamog in this deck specifically to go find um, more Eldrazi, more colorless cards. Sometimes I find Sky Spawner, but most of the times I'm just like chaining Ugins and Ulamogs into Ulamogs. We also have 4 Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Lets us cast our Devoid spells on the cheap and cast them sooner. Very important part of the deck. And 3 Yamavaya Coast just to add more blue/green sources to the deck. With the 2 drops, we have our Mana Dork creatures. We have 2 Leaf Guilders and 4 Rattleclaw Mystics. 4 Rattleclaw Mystics because it's just better than when Gilder produces green and blue mana. And also, when you flip Rattleclaw, you actually get 4 mana. So that's pretty sweet. Next up is our 3 drop slot. We have 4 Eldrazi Sky Spawner, a card that I'm really impressed with in this list. So 3 mana, 2/1 flyer. It comes into play, brings a Scion with it. So that's pretty cool. It's an evasive threat and also ramps you. We also have Tunessa, the Vestwood Seer. She doesn't flip that often because there's a lot of burn and removal in the format, so she usually doesn't flip. She usually just go fetch a forest to help you ramp. That's basically what she does. Sometimes you flip her, but most of the time, just go find a basic forest. And then we have 3 Nessa's Pilgrimage, another ramp spell, 3 mana. Gets 2 basic forests, puts one of those on the battlefield tapped, and the other one is in your hand. And if you have Spell Mastery, which is when this spell resolves, if you have an instant, 2 instants, and or sorceries in the graveyard, then you actually get 3 forests. Only 1 goes on the battlefield tapped, but just fetching lands out of our deck is very important because we want to get rid of the mana sources as soon as possible, so we can just cast all our big stuff. At 4 drops, we have Explosive Vegetation, 4 mana. You can cast it and you find 2 basic lands and put them on the battlefield tap. I usually find islands first, just to make sure I have islands to cast Dig Through Time and Drowner. You want to find forest last anyway because like you have things like Nessa's Pilgrimage and Vastwood Seer that can only find basic forest. So you have more forest searching than island searching. At 5, we have another pretty important spot in the deck, Whisperwood Elemental. So 5 mana. This guy manifests a creature at the end of your turn. It's a 4/4 beater. And he has the ability to sacrifice and turn all your face-up creatures into manifest. So that's pretty important against decks with sweeper effects like maybe Languish or Crux of Fate or, hey, well, not Radiant Flames, because Radiant Flames you'll just leave your Whisperwood in play most of the time. But yeah, you can like sacrifice that and like turn your Sky Spawners and Rattleclaws into manifest creatures that you can flip face up. Another amazing thing about this deck is the 6 drop spot. Drowner of Hope has really impressed me. So it's 6 mana, Devoid, very important for Ugin shenanigans. Just like Sky Spawner. Sky Spawner is also Devoid, so it's also colorless, and Manifest are also colorless, so they don't get swept up by Ugin. But anyway, Drowner of Hope, 6 mana, 5/5. It comes into play with 2 Scions, and it has the ability to sacrifice Scions to tap down your creatures, whether it be yours or your opponents, but most likely you're just tapping down your opponents. Very important when you're on the aggressive plan. That plan is when you're like playing an early Sky Spawner into early Whisperwood, and you're just trying to beat them down as fast as possible. You want to usually use that plan against like control decks. You just want to aggro them out before they have a chance to like come back with Dragon Lord, Ojotide, and the like. Just want to beat them down. You can also just take that line if you get a draw where it's just aggressive and not much ramp. You just want to aggro them out. Drowner is like the perfect thing. Also stands toe to toe with the Siege Rhino and comes out ahead. So that's awesome. It's at our 8 drop slot. We have no 7s. But our 8 drop slot, we have 2 Dig Through Times. Card selection is very important in a deck like this. Like sometimes you get in spots where you have a ton of mana but not much to do with it, and Dig Through Time is just a perfect spell. You're also putting these ramp things into the graveyard pretty early in the game, so being able to like delve away your graveyard to find 2 pretty high impact cards is very important. We also have The Spirit Dragon. Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Pretty much one of the most important cards in the deck. So 8 mana Planeswalker. It's uptick. Lightning bolts a creature or player. Downtick exiles colored permanents, and it's -10. Just does it all. So this card is pretty insane in standard. There's not many Devoid decks flying around. There's not many Devoid creatures flying around besides Catacomb Sifter out of 4-color Rally. So most of the time he comes in and just wipes your opponent's board. As I said earlier, Drowner and Sky Spawner, Scions, and Manifest all dodge Ugin's minus. So you get to keep a lot of things in play when you minus Ugin. If you're getting to the point where you get to plus, if you're getting to the point where you're ultimating Ugin, you're probably winning that game. I mean, drawing 7 cards, putting a Ulamog in play is a pretty big game. And then at our 10 drop spot, we have Big Daddy himself, Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. 10 mana, 10/10. When you cast him, not when you resolve, when you cast him, you get to exile 2 permanents. My permanents of choice to exile are usually white-based mana sources, because those are the mana sources that actually can deal with Ulamog. Exiling effects like Obzon Charm, Utter End, and sacrifice effects like Crackling Doom all have white in their mana cost. I guess there's also what is that called? The instant speed snare card that can grab him. But yeah, usually just want to banish white sources so that he can't be removed, because he has indestructible, so black removal, red removal doesn't do anything. He also has the amazing ability whenever he attacks, defending player exiles top 20 cards of their library. So 2 attacks usually is enough to kill them. But to be honest, you're usually casting Ulamog on turn maybe 6 or 7, usually 7 or 8 if you're lucky, and that usually just ends the game. So I should say you're casting it when you have like 7 or 8 mana sources in play. That's actually not on turn 6 or 7. That's usually before it. If you have a nice explosive draw, say Rattleclaw or Leaf Gilder into a turn 3 explosive vegetation, that's usually the line that you're casting Ulamog at the quickest. Let's move on to the sideboard. We have 3 dispels, just good old-fashioned counter spell for instance. 1 mana, being 1 mana is very, very important. Let's counter People's Dig 3 times, counter Crackling Doom's Kolaghan's commands. Very important to counter Kolaghan's command, because his deck usually plays out its hand and leaves like an Ugin or an Ulamog to cast the next turn once you ramp. And so you want to be able to counter a Kolaghan's command that would cause you to discard your big mana spell. 4 Disdainful Strokes to counter Siege Rhinos, Dig 3 times, Ojutais, Gideons. It's very good in the blue-green mirror and the the green-red mirror, countering Atarkas, Ulamogs, and Ugins. Very important. Negate is just like a backup dispel that could also target planeswalkers and things like Infinite Obliteration. For our aggro package, basically to stop that plan from beating us, letting us do our thing, we have 2 Feed the Clans. So 2 mana, instant, you gain 5 life, and if you have Ferocious, so a creature with 4 power or more, you gain 10 life, which you usually do. Your plan is usually to ramp into a Whisperwood or a Drowner as fast as possible, and then just cast Feed the Clans once, and usually that's enough just to solidify the game so that you can cast your Ugins to win. Same with Winds. So Winds is a basic fog effect that prevents all combat damage. But if you have Ferocious, it just prevents the damage that creatures or opponents would deal this turn. Combat damage your opponents would deal. So I had a game yesterday where I had a Whisperwood and 2 Lumbering Falls that I could activate, and my opponent attacked, and I blocked with a Whisperwood and Lumbering Falls, so I blocked 3 of their creatures, and then I tapped my 2 Lumbering Falls to cast Winds, and blew them out. I killed 3 of their creatures, took 0 damage, and left them with a 2/2 and a 1/1, and I was left with a Whisperwood in play and my Lumbering Falls that I could swing with the next turn. So yeah, that was pretty devastating. So that's a blowout that can happen. And then our last sideboard card is Void Winnower, 9 mana, also known as Can't Even. It's an 11/9. Doesn't have a come into play effect like most Eldrazi. Instead, it stops your opponent from being able to cast even cost spells, where 0 is also even, and creatures with even mana cost can't block. So things like Soulfire, Grandmaster, Token, Seeker of the Ways, those things can't block. and they can't be cast. And so yeah, that's basically the deck. An alternative to this version is the blue-green version that runs um, ooh, Part the Waterville. There we go. Runs Part the Waterville. I've played that version a lot, but I will say that I like this version better simply because you can go the alternative route of beatdown. Like you can just kill your opponents casting Sky Spawner into Whisperwood and just kill your opponent. So you don't have to wait to resolve a Part the Waterville or an Awaken Part the Waterville, which is 9 mana plus 1 if you want to attack. So 10 mana if you actually want to attack with the land. So I like this version a lot better. It's been doing really well in testing, and I plan to play this in today's Magic Online PTQ. So look for those videos to be up following this. I'm also gonna do like a batch maybe of a standard league online, just showcasing the deck and its powers and walk you through some of the sideboarding techniques for some matchups. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.